Before I start this video, I just want to say I'm not making this video to rage bait anybody or to offend you. I will try with the most respect I can to say everything that I believe in this video. And if I see any Christians hating in the comments, well, maybe you need to do some rethinking about your religion, because you clearly aren't following it if you're hating on me. So the main idea for this video I just want to talk about is that I think God was only ever meant to be a metaphor. God was only ever supposed to be taken as a metaphor, and that's it, not actually legit God. Before we get into my actual beliefs, I just want to tell my story of how I got there, because people say social media, you gotta be vulnerable, tell your side of the story. People like to hear that, so I'm gonna let y'all hear my side of the story. So growing up, I didn't grow up in a really religious household, but my mom grew up in sort of a religious household. So it wasn't really pushed on her, but they went to church every so often, and her dad was more on the religious side, but we don't like him, right? But so growing up, they kind of just didn't really talk about God and didn't really talk about not being religious. But we did watch VeggieTales, and we went to a church for preschool. So it was kind of I had some knowledge of it, but I didn't really know about it, So I just grew up being oh yeah, God's real. I thought it was just a fact that God was real. I didn't know it was a religion thing. So I believed in Noah's Ark and all that stuff. But then growing up, I become conscious, and I'm just well, this stuff's not really adding up. How did all these predator and prey get along on this big old boat? How did this man live to 600 years old? And I'm, just questioning everything. And so I just started to build my own beliefs, and my parents didn't really care. They didn't really believe in God either. It was just, religion was never talked about in my family. It was just a weird subject all the time. But they never really believed in God or anything either. And then I really thought about my actual beliefs, and I've started to realize that the worst people I know are Christians. And I'm not saying all Christians are bad, because that would be bad. It's just bad to clump people up and say that whole group of people is bad. I know there are good Christians. Most of the Christians I know are bad people. There's this really rude religious lady I work with, my mom's dad. We don't talk to him. He's super religious. And then I had these two friends. They were siblings. They were horrible people too. And once again, I'm not saying every Christian is bad. I'm just saying a lot are, because they don't even know how to follow their own rule book. So I had these really religious friends, right? And they always talked about God. We always had debates, And they would get angry and stuff and say that my brother was going to go to hell because he's gay. First of all, why are you over here telling him that? That's just straight up rude. One of the siblings said that all gays are closeted perverts or pedos or something, one of those things. And it's just what is actually wrong with you? There's you judging my brother for being gay is just about as big of a sin as him actually being gay. So that just helped me solidify my reasoning of not being a Christian. That helped me solidify my beliefs. I'm just okay, this is actually effed up. This is not the kind of people I want to be around, But then just recently, I really had this own awakening of mine. I really broke myself down. I don't want to say that I wanted to, but I just really did not like being alive. And so it was just a weird period I went through. Kept to myself. I just watched motivational YouTube videos. That's what kind of started me to start this YouTube channel. But it really got me thinking, why would God put somebody through just challenges on people, any type of challenges? People say that God gives the hardest challenges to the toughest soldiers. I don't believe that one bit, because why would the suicide rates be so high? But why would they be so high? Because they aren't the toughest soldiers. Because God isn't real. He doesn't give any kind of challenges to people. Like, there's a plane crash and like 27 people die and one survives. People are like, oh, it's a miracle. It's a miracle by God. He could have saved all these other people. Or like a school shooting. Or, you know, someone shooting themselves. They're like, oh, that's because people have free will. Oh, but when somebody's trying to do that to themselves in the gun jams, it's a miracle by God. They might have free will to do what they want, but if God was really real, he could make the gun jam every single time. There wouldn't be any school shootings because he could make their guns jam every single time. Sorry, this is just a topic that really gets me heated. But let me get into why I think God was only meant to be a metaphor. So I believe God is a metaphor in many different ways. I believe God himself was meant to be a metaphor. I think hell is a metaphor. I think heaven is a metaphor. Everything is meant to be a metaphor because things I've heard about teachings in the Bible and stuff is just about, you know, put your trust in God, love God. And really what that translates to is if you don't believe in yourself, God is someone there for you to lean on. When you feel like you don't have somebody to rely on you, God is there to rely on you. It's kind of like tricking somebody into loving themselves because they put all this credit on God or like God loves me or God believes in me. But really, it's just you being tricked into loving yourself because over time, that's what will start to happen. Because you hear all this about God trusting you and God loving you, that then you will begin to trust and love you. So I think that's the first metaphor. God is just a metaphor for self-love. And then heaven and hell, I think, are metaphors. They say afterlife. And I don't think that necessarily means that you will continue to live after life. I believe it's how people will think about you after life. After you're gone, if you're a bad person, you'll go to hell, right? And what hell essentially means to me is how people will talk about you. Let's use Hitler for an example. Hitler is in hell because he died and everybody talks bad about him. There's not, other than Kanye, I don't really think anybody really talks good about him. He went to hell, metaphorically. He's always being talked about bad and all kinds of stuff like that. Let's talk about heaven. Heaven is also supposed to be taken metaphorically. Take, I don't know, like Robin Williams. He was just a genuine dude, and I really don't think I heard anybody ever talk bad about him. Now, I believe that he metaphorically went to heaven because everybody talks good about him. Hardly anybody talks bad on his name, and that's his afterlife. His afterlife is people loving him and cherishing the movies with him in it, and, you know, just all kinds of stuff like that. Heaven and hell aren't actual places. They're how people talk about you after you're gone. This is something I'm very passionate about, like yapping about my beliefs and like being an atheist and stuff. So if y'all like this kind of video, let me know. I can continue to yap and yap and yap. But that's all I'm gonna put on this video for now because I think it's getting pretty long. And if I see a single Christian hating in the comments, I'm just gonna straight up ignore it because what do you mean you're a Christian and you're hating on me? Because that just doesn't add up, bro. You're judging me. That's a sin. You're going to hell. Alright, see you guys.